Een boekje van Vimala Thakar, a little book of Vimala Thakar. Life is to be related. The second part of the third talk. And sorry I wasn't here yesterday. I had a bad night and I slept right through the alarm. So apologies. So, meditation implies a state of being where in waking hours one is living in that inner emptiness, inner space, uncluttered by the movement of thought, totally relaxed, responding only when a response is warranted. Meditation is a state of being awake, alert, and yet the brain is absolutely quiet. It is not active. The mind is alert but does not react. The inner space is called emptiness. We have to use this word. There is an emptiness of space between you and me, but that emptiness is not void. It is full of many energies. We cannot see or perhaps touch them with our senses, but that's a reflection on the limitation of our senses. It's not a reflection on the nature of those energies. They are here, right now, inside the room, though we cannot see them or feel or touch them. In the same way, there's an inner space within us, like the space outside, where there are innumerable virgin energies untapped, unconditioned, unexplored by man, and undefined by verbalization. So in order to find out, to investigate, to discover the nature of the transconceptual reality, to find out if there's anything like God, like the divine, it is necessary to let the mind go into abeyance while we are awake. All the concepts, the total human past, goes into abeyance, and the mind is completely devoid of all concepts, theories, and words. The inner emptiness requires great energy. It is not a movement of the body towards an object away from the body. It's not a movement of the mind or the eye towards something which it has not got. It is voluntary winding up all the movements and to be simply in your being, just holding on there without moving in any direction whatsoever. The mysteries of life are uncovered in the emptiness of silence. We don't uncover them. The grace of life reveals them to us. Getting revealed is not the result of an action. We feel that through our brains and minds we can uncover any mystery. We can understand anything with the help of the mind and thought. This assertive intellect is an addiction, and we feel that which the intellect cannot grasp with the help of words does not exist. A person who is interested in finding out what is beyond the mind and beyond thought, what is beyond the world of concepts and symbols, will have to learn to be in a state of non-action. That is the first and the last step to be taken by us, to be in a state of effortlessness, effortless spontaneity, effortless relaxation. Now we don't know. Nobody has educated us on these lines, so we begin self-education, or sadhana, as they call it in India. The definition of sadhana is very interesting It's a Sanskrit word. Where the word sadhana is used by the Upanishads, they say that it is not for gaining something which you have not already got, because there is nothing in the cosmos that the individual does not possess within himself. Then why is sadhana necessary? To remove the obstacles in the path of realizing one's own nature. That is sadhana. We have many encumberments around us. We have surrounded ourselves with so many things, physically, psychologically, with so much knowledge of the world. It's an encumbrance around us. Sadhana is for removing those obstacles in an inward voyage. Meditation is going home. It is going back to the source of life and not going away from oneself. It is for removing the obstacles or unlearning the wrong things that we have been gathering. Sadhana is not for acquiring something. It is not very encouraging for the people when they come to learn that through sadhana there is nothing to be acquired. Everything is to be understood as it is, and to enable ourselves to live in the light of that understanding which we already carry in ourselves. We begin to learn. We have observed that the mind moves constantly, incessantly. In waking hours, when we see through our eyes or hear through our ears, we are reaching out towards objects. Sensation is brought towards the body. It is carried over to the brain. The brain interprets it according to its education. And then we react according to our conditionings. This is going on and on throughout the day, receiving, registering, recording, interpreting, evaluating, accepting, rejecting, consciously and unconsciously. This process is going on. We watch and observe that the mind moves, whether we want it to move or not. We observe the mind and see the terrific momentum of the mind. To have an intimate encounter with that terrific momentum is quite an event in life. Reading books on psychology does not create that encounter. We have to sit down and observe for ourselves. We observe the momentum, the upsurge of emotions unrelated to each other, chaotic emotions, ambitions and desires dragging us in opposite directions. We see our inner factual being when we sit down and observe. So the education begins with observation. Unless there is an urge to discover what is beyond the mind and the brain, unless there is an urge to reach out towards the infinite, we begin to observe. Observation is an attentiveness. It is a non-reactional attention. When we watch and observe and see some weakness, we get annoyed with ourselves because our image of ourselves is hurt and shattered by that encounter. We have an image about ourselves, that we have transcended the sexual urge. We sit down to observe and we notice that this is not the case. The truth discovered in the moment of observation hurts the ego, because the ego had been carrying an image of itself, and now that image is shattered. It gets damaged, and we don't like that. So the austerity of pure observation is lost, and we indulge in self-pity, annoyance, and irritation. Unless there is the humility to learn and discover, the ego will get hurt. And that's why we often come across individuals who say, that they cannot observe. That austerity of being attentive, observing without reactions, is something we have never been educated for. It is a new thing for us. We have been educated to look with a motive and try to use what we observe for our purpose, self-centered motivations, and then using the objective reality, the things around us, the people, the situations, in self-interest. This is what we are trained for. But now we're coming to our relationship with the totality of life. Life is not going to be a means to an end, nourishing the ego. The communion with life is the purpose. Realizing the nature of our relationship with the totality is the motivation. There is no other motivation. We learn to observe, and if we observe jealousy, we admit it. Observation requires humility. If there is pride and vanity, and we insist on carrying the images about ourselves that the parents have created, and we become dogmatic about these images and try to deny the truth revealed by our own observation, then we will not proceed any further. But while observing, come what may, the inner factual aspect of our being is reflected in the mirror of silence, and we are pleased to learn about ourselves. Now, there is nothing that is not noticed by us. Observation has exposed ourselves to ourselves, and we see we are the observer and we are the observed. If and when there is the urge to learn and discover the meaning of life, discover if there is anything like the divine, when that passion is there, it has a depth and intensity to it. Everyone can have an intensity of energy, a passion and vitality when the leakages to the vital energy are taken care of. When you don't allow any leakages, any dissipation or unscientific waste of energy, then every person has infinite energy at his disposal. The human being, which is condensed cosmos, is a mysterious being. We learn to observe, and that is to say, we can be with the given fact without emotionally reacting and getting entangled in the reactions. We get so much entangled in our reactions, stimulated by the objective situation, that it gets pushed into the background, and we are busy with our reactions, and we can't get out of them, and can't relate to the objective situation, can't relate to the person and the challenge. Observation enables us to have a distance between the object and ourselves. It creates a healthy space between the two, and we can be with the fact. Otherwise, we run away from the facts most of the time and try to create a make-believe world and indulge in wishful thinking. When this kind of observation becomes a normal way of living, then one is no more aware that one is observing. In the beginning, when one is learning, there is a division. I am observing myself. So we begin with that voluntary division of the I, a voluntary activity. And when we have learned it, there is no more consciousness that we are observing. There's no more effort involved in it. Observation without the observer remains a dimension into which the person has then grown. from the constant doer and the experiencer, from the constant acquiring, experiencing, evaluating, judging, etc. We have moved with our whole being into a new dimension of observation and silence. The state of observation becomes normal, as now it has become normal for us to look and listen to each other effortlessly. So as breathing is going on effortlessly. In the same way observation goes on without the I sitting at the center. So in the same way observation goes on without the I sitting at the center, making an effort and saying to itself, I am observing. The transformation takes place from one dimension into the other. It is not something mystical and mysterious in the reach of a chosen few. This is the birthright of every human being. In this state of observation, when it becomes a normal state, subconscious and unconscious, in this state of observation, when it becomes a normal state, the division and the boundaries between the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious fade away completely. In the moments of observation, we have seen what is contained in the subconscious, and we can and might have seen even the contents of the unconscious that also gets exposed. And if we have the deep and genuine interest, there is the humility not to get disturbed and upset by what we see, because what is seen is already contained within us. How can we be afraid of our own selves? If this is happening, then a very important thing takes place in the life of an individual. Self-deception, carrying images about ourselves, comes to an end. In daily relationships, we have the burden of these images. We have to project that image as people are expecting that image of us. So we try to manipulate our behavior to suit the image that they had created about us. It is quite a burden. It exhausts people to pretend to be what they are not and to hide and conceal what they actually are. That's why relationships exhaust us. Otherwise, they should revitalize us. So that game of pretension and hypocrisy of being afraid of getting exposed to others is no more. One moves in the simplicity of one's own being. The important thing, if it is allowed to happen in our lives, is the ending of this game of self-deception, hypocrisy, and pretension. Then the elegance of simplicity and the glow of that elegance permeates the being and the behavior in silence. We have not yet come to the transconceptual world. We are on the threshold between the perceptual, conceptual, and the transconceptual, equipping ourselves because the transformation or the transcendence takes place instantaneously. It does not require time. Equipping ourselves for this happening requires time and education. The actual happening of it, the actual transformation, is something that happens instantaneously and is not the result of a particular action by the person. It is a happening that occurs when the equipment is ready, purified by a scientific approach to everything and every layer of our being. Then it happens by itself. It is not of time, and it is not in time. It is unrelated to both, but it cannot occur unless the whole equipment of the body and the mind is prepared and educated for this to happen. Sadhana is a preparation for the occurrence of transformation, not for acquiring and achieving transformation. I think till so far this morning. We'll continue tomorrow morning if I don't sleep through my alarm. So have a great day. Bye.